Hey everyone, Andy Rafael from eTeknix.com, and it's been a long time since we did a build of any kind of substance on the channel, and that's exactly what we've got here today. Kind of excited, a little bit nervous. Don't know why I'm nervous, but it has been that long that, yeah, it feels kind of good to be doing a build again. It feels good to be doing something unscripted. And a little bit of a caveat, if you keep watching till the end, I'm going to give the whole system away as well. So there is a lot to sort of, talk about. There's a lot to go through. But before we do that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor.
Andy, what are you watching?
It's not what you think.
Wow, it's so big.
Why, thank you. It's the new AOC AG493 UCX. 49 inches of pure performance and a refresh rate of 120 Hz. It's so fast. You can even do two at a time.
What?
You can connect two devices at a time and split the screen. With FreeSync Premium Pro, a 32:9 aspect ratio and a built-in KVM, you'll be finished in no time. Gaming, I mean. What did you think I mean? Get your mind out the gutter and click the link in the description to find out more. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep the Verge jokes to a minimum, but we are going to start with, you need a table. In typical fashion, I don't want to go through everything right now. I'll go through it kind of as we get to each part, but I think we're probably best off starting with the motherboard, just so we can try and get as much done as we can outside the case. Anyone who's ever seen any of my builds in the past will know that I like to do as much as I physically can on the motherboard. So we're talking processor, memory, SSD if we are using an M.2 drive, just so it's easier to transplant into the case. And you will see there is no case here at the moment, and for a very, very good reason. The thing is freaking huge. We're using a case called the Thermaltake Tower 500 Snow Edition. Anyone who remembers the Tower 900 or even the Tower 100, it sits kind of in between that. So it's big, it's brash, it's bold. Someone's going to win it as well. And I'll actually, the way that we're going to do the competition, I'm going to make it really, really sneaky and snidey. What I'm going to do is somewhere in the video, I'm going to mention something. And to enter the competition, you're going to have to actually answer that question. So straight off the bat, we're using a Z690 Tomahawk Wi-Fi DDR4. So Z690, so we have got the latest chipset from Intel. We are going to get all the latest and greatest features, including the latest Wi-Fi, full support for obviously faster storage devices. Generally, it would be DDR5, but we've gone with DDR4 on this just because Thermaltake actually were the ones who organized everything, and they're the ones who sent over some DDR4 memory, and then they started kind of building the wish list, I guess, around that. Funny story, this is the first Intel processor I've had in quite some time that's come in retail packaging. So, yeah, I mean, why do we not get this as reviewers? I'm a little bit disappointed, I've got to admit, but this is how it looks. We normally just get a processor in a little box. But this is the Intel Core i9 12900K. And I mean, like, that's an experience. No wonder, you know, the retail market are happy about things. I want this. Guessing this opens not that way. So this way. And then we get our first glimpse of the 12900K. So, yeah, obviously we're going to get our efficiency cores. We're going to get our performance cores. We are going to get huge amounts of performance. You know, this is the top dog from Intel, unless you're talking about the sort of, you know, special edition, obviously KS SKU. But 12900K, I think anyone's going to be happy with getting that as a processor. Pop this off and clamp it down. Okay, let's talk about storage. So this is where MSI came in. So Thermaltake actually reached out to MSI. You'll probably start to see a little bit of a theme here. A lot of the products here are either Thermaltake or MSI. Probably not my favorite name in the world. Spatium? How would you pronounce that, Deck? Spatium? Spatium. Spatium. Spatium sounds awful. I mean, Spatium sounded bad, but Spatium. And it's quite funny because a lot of manufacturers of PC products have come out with really bad names over the sort of years. If you can remember any, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if you guys remember any of them, please put it into the comments section below. But yeah, this is the Spatium or Spatium. I think Spatium is probably where they were going with it. M480, so it's PCI Express 4.0, NVMe drive, 2 terabytes, and we got read speeds of up to 7,000 megabytes a second. So let's get this out. Now, this does come with its own heatsink on there. Got to admit, it's a little bit on the high side for my kind of personal preference, and we are going to have to put it somewhere in the board that's, you know, not going to be using its own heatsink, because this board does have, as you can see, multiple slots, 1, 2, 3, and 4 for M.2 drives, but we're going to take one of them off and just have this there because you can't use both together. Now, we are going to need a screwdriver to do this, and perfect opportunity for me to talk through the eTeknix PC maintenance toolkit, which comes with everything you need, apart from the thermal paste because I put that in there, but everything you need to build, repair, and maintain your PC, available over on store.eteknix.com. And the people who have bought it, I mean, check out the reviews on there. You'll see straight away that it's the best toolkit they've ever used. I defy anyone to find a better toolkit for the money. Right, so let's get the drive into place. And as I say, I've got to be mindful about showing you guys as much as physically possible, but we're going to line that up into there. And then MSI has this really cool kind of notch, which allows you to actually kind of put the drive in, and without screwing it down, you can just sort of pull over the little latch and then it just stays there. Gotta admit, it doesn't go with our color scheme, but you know, we've got what we've got, so we're just going to roll with it. Let's have a look at the memory and talk about that. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Thermaltake make memory, and this is the ToughRAM XG RGB. This is like their, I want to say, 4th iteration of DDR memory, and they have got DDR5 coming out, and I think we're actually due to be doing a review on them very, very soon. So check that out, eTeknix.com. So let's talk about this. This is 2 8-gig modules, so we've got 16 gig in total. These are 4,000 megahertz in speed, and admittedly, they look very, very nice. So they're going to fit in with our whole kind of color scheme theme that we're going with, which is snow related, I guess. You know, it's coming towards summer. We've got to get everything nice and cool. So yeah, we're going for a snow build, and you'll see that with like the amount of fans that we've got and the color of the case when I show you that as well. And that's in. That is basically what we can do in terms of the motherboard, trying to get everything as prepared as physically possible, because we are using an AIO, and generally speaking, you can't do much with an AIO when it comes to the cooler, whereas with an air cooler, you could build it up here, get it into the case, all ready to go. So let's make some room. And I'm looking at it on the floor, it's huge. Let's make some room and get the case up. Okay, this is the Tower 500. So this is the newest case from Thermaltake. We are gonna kind of try and strip it down as much as we can, because it is quite versatile. I mean, straight off the bat, you can see it's not conventional in the slightest. It's got a kind of chimney-esque design to it, I guess. Take this panel off, and then take this panel off, and you can swap them around so that instead of having the window at the front and then the mesh, you then have the mesh at the front and then the window. So you can just, you know, change it about a little bit, have it how you want. Kind of has, I like the mesh at the back because then you get that kind of whole panoramic kind of view with the glass towards the front, which makes sense. You know, it looks a little bit like a fish tank. I get it. But for those of you who really want to show off your system, maybe you want like RGB and stuff like that, this is the way to go. And the beauty of this is, as you take everything out, I mean, you've got full kind of flexibility and room to get inside the case, and that just makes building so much simpler. So yeah, let's get everything out of here, and then we can actually look to get our motherboard in and start resembling something that looks like a PC system. Okay, so on top of the case having, from what we can see, sheer amounts of ventilation, and Thermaltake have actually done some thermal tests themselves. So instead of me having to do it myself, we can just put up some pictures of that, and you can see exactly what they were able to achieve with this case, because they tested it under quite a few different kind of variables and environments and stuff like that. But we are actually going to put in a mass amount of fans in here. But before I even start building the PC, I want to talk about this. This is the LCD panel kit. So this is sold separately. It doesn't come with the case, but it's specifically made for this case. You've probably seen a lot of professional modders and things like that have kind of been resorting more to using screens and things in cases, and I think a lot of consumers are kind of now jumping on that same bandwagon. So what you can actually do is take off this ventilated panel and replace it with the LCD panel kit, which has a 3.9-inch screen already kind of embedded into the design itself. So you'll see it fits in very nicely, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have it in black or white. I mean, it makes sense because the case comes in black or white, and you're going to be able to install it in and then synchronize it. And this is a cool thing with their AIO as well, which also has a screen on it. So you can basically have matching things on the screen and stuff like that. But this is basically what it looks like, and looks pretty cool overall. And it comes with the cable that you're going to need, which is simply a micro USB to internal USB header for the motherboard. So this can get plugged into there like so. And the cool thing is this is actually a splitter cable. So I'm guessing this could plug into the AIO, and then you only actually use up one of the headers. Okay, so panel is installed, and I think it looks quite nice overall. Just an FYI, it's coming in, I think they said about $99 for the panel. The case itself is only $179 as well. It's going to be about the same in pounds, so 99 and then 179, somewhere around that. Euros is going to be a little bit more expensive. So let's get the motherboard in, and one of the cool things here, if I can try and do it while I'm sort of facing the camera, is what they actually do is something that I think every case manufacturer should do, which is the middle standoff actually holds the motherboard in place. Okay, so motherboard's screwed in, and now we get to the point where I honestly think there is no point showing you on video, but let me talk through what we've actually got on the front I/O. So the I/O is at the top, which means if this is on the floor for whatever weird and wonderful reason you decide that it has to be on the floor, you're going to be able to get to it quite easily. But even if it's up on a desk, you know, not a million miles away. So 2 USB ports here, 2 over here, and we've also got Type-C. So we've got to connect these cables, connect this cable. There is honestly, more over here, there is honestly no point me showing you this on camera. It would make the video obscenely long, and I think it's going to be fairly long anyway. So let's get that on, and then we can start talking about getting the power supply in, getting the graphics card in, and then the most important thing, cooling, because this case has a little bit of a secret when it comes to cooling. Okay, let's talk about the cooler. So this is the Thermaltake Tough Liquid Ultra 360. So basically their latest iteration in the Tough Liquid range of coolers. We're not going to use the fans that this actually comes with, purely because we're trying to keep the build kind of specifically on point when it comes to the color scheme, the color theme. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to be using 3 different fans instead of the included ones for this. And luckily, like most AIOs on the market, it doesn't actually come with the fans pre-installed, so we don't really need to worry about taking them off to then put these on. And I know what you're thinking looking at the case, like where is an AIO going to go? Because it doesn't look like it can really go anywhere. We're going to need all the mounting brackets and everything, but other than that, this is good to go. But yeah, it actually turns out this AIO is going to, by the way of magic, install onto the side of the build. So basically where one of the side panels is going to go. So this is a cooler itself, 360 mil. They've made it so much simpler than it used to be. If you remember, the old Tough Liquid AIOs would have mass amounts of cables. This literally has this one, then it has our connector here, which if you remember from the LCD panel, had a spare one, so we can just plug this into there. And it just makes things so much simpler instead of having all these cables go off to the side and things like that. But we need to think about where it's actually going to go in our AIO. So I'm thinking inside our case, because where we've got our graphics card coming down here, I think it's going to be better over to this side, and then we can just sort of maneuver this about and turn it about. So with that in mind, if we're going to have it that way, we've got to think about which way the fans are going to come out in terms of the cables, because we want to keep it kind of as neat and tidy as physically possible. So cables this way. And this is where these bad boys come in, which every single one of them is sealed. So this is going to take me a while, because this case takes, I kid you not, 11 fans. So these are all Tough Fan 12s. They're all in white, and we're going to put 11 inside of here. So it's going to be monumentally ventilated from literally every single angle. Bottom, top, left, right, front, pretty much everywhere. So yeah, we need to get 3 of these onto the AIO and then get that installed, and then we can actually look at where we're going to put the rest of the fans. Okay, so we've got all of our fans out, and as I mentioned, we need to put 3 of them into our AIO. And it's quite weird how this is actually going to fit in to the system, because when you look inside the case, it doesn't really look like there's room for an AIO, especially of this kind of size, 360mm. I mean, what, does it just float there? Does it sit on the top? Does it sit on the bottom? Well, Thermaltake with the Tower 500 actually give you these brackets, which allow you to screw into the radiator. These then screw into the side of the case into 2 of these rubber grommets, and then it kind of allows it to be semi-freestanding. It's actually a really ingenious idea, and I'm really excited to sort of see how it looks once it's in there, because I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. So once the fans are on, once the bracket is actually on, what we need to do is come in from this side, which seems like a bit of a strange one, and line up these 2 screws at the bottom with the rubber grommets like so. And then what you can actually do, if I turn it around this way, is grab the supplied screws that come with the case, because at the moment it's just kind of freestanding there. Line it up at the top and screw that one down. And then we get 1 more screw and screw it down in 2 places. And then once that's done, it's done. So now that the AIO is actually installed into the case, we went to put the block on top of the CPU. And in typical build fashion, and I'm pretty sure the last build we did, the same thing happened, we are missing the LGA 1700 bracket. So yeah, see you in a couple of days.
The next day.
And we're back, another day, actually 1 whole day, not even, longer than that. I was expecting this to take a little while, but Thermaltake did manage to come through, and now we have the LGA 1700 bracket. So finally, because I wanted to get this build done yesterday, we can actually sort of get this done. So it's just a matter of putting these screws into the relevant places, getting it through the motherboard and screwing it down into place. Okay, so with our bracket on there, we can get some thermal paste onto the CPU and then actually put the AIO into place. So we're going to go with the trusty P method and not the, I did promise no more Verge jokes, but not the constellation method, should we call it, or the bird crap method. But yeah, now that it's on there, we can peel this off and actually look to get this into place. Okay, so AIO is now in, positioned down quite nicely. We can, because of the beauty of this AIO, rotate it to how we want. So depending on what we're actually going to put on the screen will allow us to kind of rotate it around to basically wherever we want. And that actually helps us as well, because there is, remember, a cable that needs to go into the side of it. So what we can do is grab that cable, which is the same sort of splitter cable that went to that front LCD panel that we spoke about yesterday. And we can install that into there, rotate this sort of back round to there, pull that cable through and try and make it look as nice and neat as possible. But right now we've got 3 fans installed, and I did mention this case can actually install quite a few fans. It can install 11 in total. Just looking around it, it does seem a bit like, where are they going to go? But we have the 3 here, which obviously you could put 3 on the side panel if you wanted instead. Does look like potentially there's room for 1 here, maybe, but I think this might be in the way. 1 here, 2 actually in the front behind this LCD panel, so it's still getting some air from this ventilation. Does look like potentially you could maybe install some down here as well. 2 up the top, but I don't know if the AIO is going to get in the way a little bit. And then maybe some more on the other side panels. And then there is the back bracket, which comes with 2 fans pre-installed, but we're going to be swapping them out so everything's matching with these nice white tough fans. Okay, so starting with one of the top fans, what I'm thinking, just looking at sort of cable routing positions and things like that, is if we move this off, we should maybe in theory be able to get one just up here. Okay, so next 2 fans now that the top 2 are in. So now we've got our 3 on our AIO and then we've got our 2 up top. So that's 5. Then if we open up this again, just so it makes it a little bit easier for us to kind of maneuver and whatnot, we can just pull that LCD panel bit down and you can see there is a little bit of a kind of bracket here. So we should, in theory, be able to get some fans through there. Now it does look like we can take these panels off, but if I don't have to, I'm not going to. And it looks like we can, position 1 just about there. and then another one just next to it, maybe with a cable kind of going between the two fans. Okay, so I did mention, now that we've got the fans in, we've got one sort of behind here, one behind here. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we are going to put 2 on the back to replace the ones that come with it, so that's going to be 9. But I did mention it can take 11. So this fan, you'd essentially, due to the chimney-like design of this case, you'd want to actually put it here. And instead of kind of being installed using 4, you actually install it 1, 2, 3, like that. But there is a slight issue, and this comes down to, I guess, you know, looking at measurements and things like that. So the first thing is, this is going to go over the other side with the AIO. We're not going to be able to put a fan on there because the 360mm AIO is just going to restrict us having another fan here. If you were using a smaller radiator, say 240mm, you're going to be fine, or even an air cooler, you're going to be absolutely fine. If you are wanting to use a 360mm, that's where the problem is going to come in. Same with this side. If you were using a conventional graphics card, you're not going to have any issues, but we're going to be using an RTX 3080 Supreme X. It's a very long card. I don't think we're really going to have the room to put this one in, but when we go to put the graphics card in, we'll see. If we have room to put one here, at least we're going to get 10 in here, which is still an astronomical amount of fans inside this case. So let's try and get this all built back together, put these panels on, screw them down, then we can actually start looking at the graphics card, power supply, connecting all the fans up and basically seeing what this bad boy can do. Okay, so let's talk about graphics cards, and this is the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop, the best there is pretty much. This is the MSI Supreme X RTX 3080. Obviously very equivalent to the likes of the Asus Strix, Gigabyte Extreme cards. This is probably one of the most beautiful cards I've ever seen. Now, this particular case can accept pretty large graphics cards, and they do actually kind of install in quite a weird way because the graphics card is actually vertical instead of, you know, your conventional horizontal or vertically in terms of this sense. So from here to here, it can accept graphics cards up to 325mm in length. Problem that we've got is this graphics card is larger than that. I mean, it is a beast. It is not for the faint-hearted. But we wanted to include it in our build because of that exact reason, because it is a beast. So we are going to have to actually remove this panel to make it fit because it's, I believe, 334mm in length. So then we can actually look to get it behind and around this fan and then get it into place. And then we can, get the thumb screws and install it into the bracket. And yes, we could have gone for a smaller card and, you know, would have maybe looked a little bit better in terms of cable management and what we've kind of got going on down here. But, I mean, look at that. That graphics card looks absolutely just crazy. And, I mean, I use a Supreme X card myself at home, so I know exactly what they're capable of doing. And, yeah, I love them to pieces. So, and it kind of ties in with the whole build because it's got a nice silver aesthetic to it. We're also going to get some really, really nice RGB effects because all of the RGB is all down here. So straight away from the front, we're going to get that, you know, really nice view. From the side, you're going to see all the fans. Yeah, I don't even care about this bit anymore. Okay, so we've got the graphics card in. Obviously, there are 2 more fans that we need to put in. It is a shame now that we have got the graphics card there that we can't put that fan in. But again, if you went for a slightly smaller GPU, then you're going to have the ability to do that. Now, this was what actually came on the back of it. So there are 2 fans here. So all we're simply going to do is take out these fans and replace them again with the white fans that we've got as part of the Tough Fan 12 lineup. So we're going to take these 2 black standard fans out. If you wanted, you could potentially sell these or keep them as spares or something like that. But just for uniformity and everything, because these aren't PWM fans, we are going to swap it over for these ones, which are PWM fans. And I actually want to talk about that because this is what we're going to be using. This is the Commander FP 10-port hub for PWM fans. So it's specifically made for PWM fans. And what we'll actually be able to do is go into the BIOS. We'll be able to set whatever port we decide to connect to on the motherboard and set them all at a fixed RPM, say 900 RPM, which we are told at 900 RPM, these are going to give us kind of that best balance of amazing performance and keeping it nice and quiet as well. Remember, there's so many fans in here. Technically, we don't need them to be, you know, at maximum or anything like that. They're all going to run nice and cool, nice and quiet, collectively. Okay, so fans in place. We can now look at sort of sliding that around our cables and getting that back into place. So let's talk about the power supply, because that's what we need to put in, and then we're pretty much done. It's a shame that we couldn't get these fans in, but like I say, the graphics card and the AIO did restrict us to only 9 fans. So power supply wise, we're going with a Tough Power GF1 Snow 850 watt. It is a gold rated power supply as well, which conveniently I have found just in the last 6 months to a year, they have come down in price dramatically. I mean, it used to be quite a lot of disparity between like a bronze rated power supply and a gold rated power supply, whereas now there's not really much in it. So you might as well plump for the gold. I think gold is becoming kind of the standard now. It used to be bronze, now it's gold. So what we want to do is think, what are we going to need? We're going to need a 24 pin. So we're going to get that out. These look really, really nice. I've got to admit, Thermaltake, you've come a long way with your cables since the last proper sort of hefty power supply I used, which I've got to admit, it had all kind of singular braided power supply cables and it looked absolutely awful. They were just a nightmare to kind of cable manage and yeah, just horrible. Okay, so let's get the power supply in, which has got, if I can find my trusty handy dandy eTeknix screwdriver, has got a little thumb screw just here. So we're going to unscrew them just to loosen them off a little bit. And then once we unscrew both screws, one on each side, we can then look to take this panel out, get it onto our power supply, fan facing down because there is some exhaust there. And then we can screw that into the bracket, slide it back in, and away we go. Okay, so power supply in, we can then look at sort of trying to find the best route for our cables, because obviously some go over to that side of the motherboard, some go over to this side of the motherboard. So really it just takes a little bit of time to kind of make it look as neat and tidy as possible. Obviously PCI Express ones, they're just going to go straight from here into here, and we can try and do our best to make it look as nice as possible. So the build is basically done. All we've got to do is put all the panels back on. Now, I did mention at the start, you get a choice of whether you want the glass at the front or the filter at the front. I think we're going to go with glass at the front, just purely, I think it looks a lot better. So let's do the peel on one side, and I believe there's one on the other side as well. Don't know if it's just me. I know people get, you know, obsessed with pill sounds and stuff like that. I don't know. Sometimes you can get nice pill sounds, other times it's just not as pleasant. So let's get the other side on. So more peeling for you guys. So hopefully the ones who do enjoy this are actually having a really good time. So let's peel that one. And the other side. See, that was a horrible peel. It wasn't a pleasant peel. Admittedly, if I did it a little bit kind of, you know, slower, then yeah, it would have made a bit more of a difference. Right, that's on, that's on. We can now look at getting the back panel on, which has one of the largest dust filters I've ever seen. I mean, that's just crazy. But if it does the trick, it does the trick. If anything, it looks like the back of a fridge once it's actually in place. Now, I haven't done an amazing cable job, so I'm not even going to show you that, but whoever actually wins this as a prize is going to, yeah, don't worry, it is going to be all nicely cable tied and everything for you. So let's get that into place and get it screwed down, and then we can get the top cover. No, we need the front first, don't we? We still need to do the front, which means we have more peeling. I know this video, it's so appealing, right? Come on, that was funny. So one, and one more, and then we can get this on. And apologies if there is any horrible reflections, it shouldn't be too bad. And we can look to get this into place, which will basically lock all them kind of panels into place, and then we can look at getting it turned on. So last panel, which goes on top, again, more dust filters that can go in there. And overall, even though we're not using that kind of PSU panel to cover up the cables. Doesn't actually look too bad. So let's get a kettle lead, get it plugged in, turn it on, and see what happens. And there we go. So we've got the panel, the LCD panel all lit up, the screen on the AIO telling us the liquid temperature, the memory's lit up, the graphics card's lit up. Admittedly, it's a little bit noisy right now while it boots, but that will calm down. Fans are spinning, fans are spinning, fans are spinning. I mean, I can feel the fans are spinning. This is literally blasting out air, and it's not actually that loud. So once the fans calm down, obviously it's trying to boot into Windows and there's no installation on here, but we will look at that. And then, yeah, we can get everything set up, and away we go. But there is one more thing I want to show you, because being a snow edition, I feel like there's one more key important part that sadly I'm not going to give away. It is for us in the office, but it's going to tie in with this perfectly. Okay, so we're in the BIOS, and straight away you will probably notice, I don't know if the microphone's picking it up too well, but the fans are fairly noisy as standard. But I've been told something, and that is if we go into the hardware monitor, we can actually get full control over the fans. And we've got them all plugged into the hub, and then consequently that then goes through to one single PWM connector, and currently they're at 1100 RPM. If we change this to PWM, straight away it sounds glorious. But we are told there is a sweet spot, and it should be somewhere around 950 RPM. So you may remember at the beginning of this video I said that there was going to be a question that you would have to answer to be able to win this whole system. That is it. What speed is the sweet spot for these tough fans? 950 RPM. So yeah, there is a link down below that will take you to exactly where you need to go to be able to enter that competition, and that is one of the entry requirements. 950 RPM. We can probably dial this in just a smidge more because we're at 960, 945. Okay, it's going a little bit lower, so we'll just take it up one to get it to about 950 RPM. The other thing that we need to do is obviously get as much performance as we physically can. So with that, we do want to set XMP. So we're going to enable that. And straight away it comes up with the memory, which is the Thermaltake memory in there, 4000 megahertz, 1923, 2342. We can save that and get into Windows, because there is one more thing I want to show you. Okay, so one last thing that I do want to show you now that the system is booted up within Windows, we've got the Thermaltake RGB Plus software. You do get kind of readings of all the components inside. So we've got our i9 12900K, RTX 3080 and the Tough RAM XG RGB. But the main thing I want to show you is what comes under the lighting panel. So we do get our memory, the Tough RAM X RGB, and you get full control over kind of what you want to do with that. But then the important one is Tough Liquid Ultra. So in here, we can actually change this from GPU load to CPU temperature or CPU frequency. And it does actually apply very, very quick from when you press the apply button. But the key important one, and I did say about this, is the screen at the bottom. If you wanted, we can go into upload file, and you can basically have it display anything you want really. And you can actually turn this off by turning the light off. For instance, if you sleep in the same room as your computer and you have it on at night, you don't want this kind of keeping you awake, so you can turn that off. If we turn that back on, comes up with a Thermaltake logo. We can put whatever we want there, or again, we can do things like CPU temperature. We can do GPU frequency. So you do get kind of full customization over that. You can also group them as well, so you can group various components. And I guess really that is the end of the video. It's not gone entirely to plan, especially with the graphics card being longer than we expected it to be and not actually fitting in the case properly. But I'm still amazingly pleased with how this actually looks in terms of the design, what you actually get to see. It breaks the mold from our generic, I guess, you know, style and design that we're used to. And yeah, I think that's what the Tower 500 is all about. And especially when you add in things like the LCD panel, it just takes that unique look and just kind of takes it one step further again. And remember, we're giving away this whole system. So yeah, if you want the information on that, link is down below. It will take you to a third-party website where you'll be able to enter. And remember, there is that all-important question that you have to answer, which I did mention a few minutes ago. So there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like this video as well as subscribe to the channel. If you love what we do and you want to support us in other ways, then yeah, you can do so over on patreon.com. Again, link is down below. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.